Let's talk about the different sections of each channel. Now, there are a lot of sections. I can control which ones are shown from this menu down here. I'm showing all right now. I can show a minimal set, which is just my inputs and outputs, automation, and then the main part of the channel here, the fader and so forth. And I can selectively turn on different sections. Now, by the way, these can all be memorized as part of Windows configurations. I talked about Windows configurations in the navigation and workflow course, but just to review, let's say I want to set up something here with just a minimal configuration plus my first set of inserts, and I want a narrow view. I'll save that as a configuration. We'll call it narrow view. And because this is checked, it will include the mix settings. In other words, which sections I'm showing and whether it's narrow or wide. I can also just memorize the settings of the mix window. Let's do that right now. And now I'll do another configuration with all showing and wide channels. And we're going to call this one wide mixer. And again, just show the mixer window down here. So now if I do 0.3 star, I get my narrow mix with only the sections that I had in that first configuration. If I do 0.4 star, I get the wide mixer with all of the sections showing. So that's very helpful. I can memorize the sections of the mixer I want in each Windows configuration, and I can override that by choosing from this menu here. All right, so what do we have here? Well, if you have a Pro Tools preamp, you'll show up here the preamp settings. In this second section, which is blank, you will show instrument information for MIDI instrument tracks. This is my B4 organ. I'm running a plugin that comes with Pro Tools called DB33, and here are the settings for that instrument. You learned about that in Mike's MIDI course. This next section is for a plugin called Heat. It's an Avid plugin that really warms up your sound. If you have it and you've activated it, this section will show up. Otherwise, it won't be there. Then we have up to 10 inserts and 10 sends. And we'll be talking about inserts and sends a lot in coming parts of our course here. We then have this I/O section, inputs and outputs obviously, a section for automation, which we'll talk about in our automation section. If I have groups active, I can tell which group a channel belongs to right here. My panning, for a mono track, a single panner. For a stereo track, I can pan the left and the right sides differently, and I show the display down here. Solo, mute, record, input mode, which lets me listen to a track when I'm recording, lets me hear the live audio. The fader, of course, and then the volume of the fader. This section down here shows me voices for audio tracks. All of my voices right now are set to dynamic, which means that Pro Tools will automatically allocate which voice a track belongs to. To explain voices very briefly, let me pull up the system usage. And you can see here that I have in my system 160 voices. Essentially 160 tracks of audio can be playing at once. And Pro Tools has allocated 47 of those. When I get above 160, that's when Pro Tools starts to complain in my system. And I can override this by specifically assigning a given voice to a track, but usually you don't have to do that. This area right below the track name is for delay compensation. I'll be talking about that in a moment. A comments section, very useful for talking about which type of mic you're using or any other notes for the track. And then finally, the color bar down at the bottom. Now, in addition to displaying the volume for the channel in this display, I can alter what's displayed here by holding down the Command key and clicking. I can display the volume for the channel, the peak volume for that channel, the delay for the channel, and back to volume. So let me play a little bit here. Let me just solo my piano. I will command click My peak is about minus 5.9. If you have an HD system, you can show the total delay for the track. And notice, by the way, that when I raise and lower my fader, it doesn't control the meter. The meter is showing me the strength of the audio, and as you would expect, green is normal, yellow is pre-clipping, and if you get into the red, that means you're clipping. The fader controls the playback volume when you're playing back. When you're recording, the fader controls the monitor level. To reset a fader to 0 dB, I just option click it. And by the way, that works the same for panners. If I want to reset the position of a panner, option click it, it goes to 0. There's one last thing I want to show you about the mixer, and that's the clip indicator. I'm showing just an electric guitar track here, and I'm going to play it. I've set it really loud. Well, clearly that's loud and distorted and nothing that we want. But for the purposes of an example, I want to show you that the clip indicator went off here. You can see the little red light there. Now, I also added an insert. We'll talk about those in a couple videos here. But an insert is essentially a plugin, and in this case, it's an EQ plugin. And you can see here some red lights as well. Now, I can reset a clip indicator by just clicking it. So if I click that, the red light goes off and the plugin is no longer red. To correct this one, I just click it and it goes away. If I want to get rid of all clip indicators everywhere, I do Option C. Option C will remove all clip indicators. You have some control over how the clipping indicators work under Preferences. On the display page, you can see a meters section, and there we can define how long the meters hold their peak, 3 seconds or forever, and then how long it holds its clipping indicator, infinite, which is what it's set to now, or only for 3 seconds. And you can even turn the clipping indicator off completely if you want.